At the animated nature of the crowd this morning. It was kind of unbelievable. It's either leftover, either a continuation of last night, or it's anticipating the day to come, which is going to be a great morning. But I don't want to call anybody in particular out, but they're sitting at that table back there. They've been gesturing and shouting. And we like to see that because often our third morning is people are not ready because of what they may have been doing. In any event, I'm just trying to talk a little bit to get you guys settled down so that we can bring up our breakfast sponsor. And today it's sponsored by Emarsis. And you're going to hear from Nicole Hutzel, who's the Regional Vice President of Sales for the Americas. Emarsis.
Good morning. Sorry, I have the tendency to talk with my hands, and now they're both full. So this should be interesting. So as Ken mentioned, I am the Regional Vice President of Sales for the Americas at Emarsis. And if you take away nothing else today, you now know how to pronounce our name. So, hey, we're Emarsis. Let me see if I can get the slides moving. So we're going to talk a little bit about machine learning and AI, and how Emarsis is using it to scale true personalization. So I'm not going to talk a lot about Emarsis, but I am going to talk a lot about myself. And how I'm going to talk about myself is to give you my point of view about the world around us from a personalization perspective, as well as artificial intelligence and machine learning. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself and my shopping habits and my family, and we'll even maybe run through the slides very quickly. But first and foremost, like all of you in this room, I am a consumer of digital experiences. So every single day, I interact in the digital sphere. Sometimes I'm looking at content, sometimes I'm yelling at Twitter, sometimes I'm purchasing, sometimes I'm consuming content for pure entertainment. I'm also, like everybody else in this room, a marketing technologist. If you are in marketing today, you interact with technology in order to meet the needs of your customers. I do the same thing. I currently at Emarsis work with over 700 bright minds, and what we're doing at Emarsis is solving some very big problems. I think I might have a little secret about scaling personalization, and one of the things that we focus on a ton at Emarsis is, and to coin a phrase from my CMO, delivering on the promise of marketing. So in our minds, what is the promise of marketing? The promise of marketing, as you guys as marketers and me as a marketing technologist, is to help create true one-to-one personalized experiences. So that, in my mind, and in Emarsis' mind, is delivering on the promise of marketing. So I'll be talking a lot more about the promise of marketing as well. But first of all, I want to tell you a story. As I said, I'm a consumer of digital experiences, and I'm also a brand loyalist. There's a couple reasons for this. One is that I'm hair illiterate and clothing illiterate. So in order for me to scale in my lifestyle, I travel a lot, I have to be loyal to clothing brands, makeup brands, underwear brands, shoe brands, so that somebody can help me be more successful in my attire and my poise. So I stick with a brand that I can walk in and use, let's say, a personal shopper, and say, hey, clothe me from head to toe, because there's no way I'm going to figure this out myself. I also use lookbooks online because, again, I travel a ton. And I use product recommendations to help me be more successful and less hair, clothing, and makeup illiterate. One of my favorite brands is an underwear brand. And I'm going to talk a little bit about my underwear. Actually, I'm going to talk about my mom's underwear. So, unfortunately, but she's okay now, my mom was in the hospital for a period of time. And my parents have been married for 55 years. And my dad says to me, oh my God, I am in so much challenge. I'm an only daughter, so of course he called me, not my brothers. He said, your mom needs underwear. I'm like, okay. He said, I have no idea how to buy your mom underwear. I'm like, okay, Dad, I got this. So my dad lives in California, I live in Toronto. He texts me a picture of her underwear, and I look at the label, I look at the size. My mom and I have different taste in underwear. We'll get into that as well. So I go to my favorite brand, and because I'm buying it from my mom, I don't do what I normally do, which is look for an offer or whatever. Instead, I just go in and I search and I find extra, extra small, cream-colored, high-waisted granny panties. And, I shouldn't call them granny panties. That's kind of disrespectful to my mom, but that's the truth. They're granny panties. And I buy them in a cream color because, hey, that's my mom's color. And then I get a little wild, put in some white, maybe some dusky rose. I add a terry-colored bathrobe, or terry-colored white bathrobe and some very sensible slippers. I put in an address in Berkeley, California, and I ship it to my mom. Well, I, on the other hand, have very different tastes in underwear. I also am a very different size than my mom. So it's spring. I don't know how many of you, I'm sure many of you, have your spring underwear wardrobe. I certainly do. Dennis does. We're all good. And I go in and being, as I said, a marketing technologist and a consumer of digital experiences, I go look for an incentive in my Gmail inbox because, I'm an email. I'm gonna try at least. And I go and I open up that email, and lo and behold, I notice that my favorite brand, and let me say, I shop in-store, I'm a loyalty member, I've been buying from this brand for years and years and years. My brand had an email, and they were personalizing the experience to me. And you know what those images were and those recommendations were? Cream-colored, high-waisted, extra, extra small granny panties, and products like them. I'm like, oh man, you guys don't know who I am? I click through because I want that incentive. I go to the website, and there they are, personalizing my experience again. If you like high-waisted cream-colored granny panties, you may like this product as well. And I'm like, oh no. They're trying so hard to personalize my experience. This just created a sense of empathy because I understand this is what I do for a living. I help personalize experiences for customers. And frankly, they had gone the extra mile. They were using a solution that was taking data that I had input in the system, but they weren't being able to scale that to true one-to-one personalization. So, moving on. I'll get back to my underwear shortly. So, who is that on the left-hand side? We all know who that is, right? Anonymous. I would argue that that's also our customer. While we have a proliferation of data, we have a proliferation of channels, we have more information on our customers than ever before. We have systems and EDWs and CRMs and behavioral tags. We have BI, CI. But instead of our customers becoming more knowing our customers more, they become more anonymous with that proliferation of data and channels. So on the right-hand side, that's Adam. He works for my favorite underwear brand. He's a modern marketer. He may work on your team as well. You may actually be Adam. And Adam's here. He's been tasked with creating campaigns, workflows, and delivering on the promise of marketing, true one-to-one experiences. Adam's like, what time do I send these emails? What channel should I send on? Maybe I shouldn't be sending an email. Maybe I should be doing an SMS or a push notification. Who should I actually be sending to? When should I be sending in the customer life cycle? And what should I be sending? I didn't go to school to do this. I went to school to focus on content, strategy, and creative. I did not go to school to tactically execute campaigns. So we'll get back to Adam in a little bit as well. Anybody have one of these in your program? Who in this room has a win-back program? Nobody? Okay, good. 2 people have a win-back campaign. So what do we use a win-back campaign for? We have customers who are defecting. We have customers who have determined that we aren't meeting their needs as a brand, and they're leaving to go purchase from somebody else. Should be a pretty simple campaign to execute, right? We should know when our customers are ready to leave, and we should be able to send them something to keep them in our customer base. How many of you have, who have win-back campaigns, have a campaign canvas that looks like this? It's a typical win-back campaign, right? Got a customer who's about to defect, Gotta figure out what time to send it to, what channel, whatever. This is one campaign. This is a win-back campaign. Adam has to do a number of these campaigns in order to scale, to have that deliver on that promise of marketing. Is this scalable? We don't believe that we can truly personalize experiences if Adam is spending all day long building these campaign workflows. And by the way, this is our interface. So we're giving Adam these tools as well. But in the long term, this just isn't going to scale. And this is why not many of you in this room have win-back campaigns, because you're focused on welcome campaigns, post-purchase campaigns, cross-sell, upsell campaigns. We could go through the myriad lists, abandon, behavioral trigger campaigns. So let's get back to my mom. My mom says to me on a constant basis, she's almost 78, she wants to keep her brain sharp. She says, Nick, what do you do? I'm like, oh, okay, because we go through this like every 2 years because I change jobs a lot. What do I do? Oh, well, Mom, I'm working for a B2C marketing automation company. Okay, you did that before. Yeah, we're a global company. Yes, headquarters in Vienna, been around since 2000, 17 offices worldwide, work with retailers and e-com, and we help them, talk to their customers through omni-channel communication. She goes, well, how's that different from the other places you worked? I'm like, well, let me tell you, we also layer on customer intelligence that leverages machine learning and AI. And my mom's like, what's that? I'm like, okay, Mom, let me give you a 1-minute lesson in machine learning AI. Now, my friend at Amazon, Vicky, did a better lesson, and we had cordial yesterday, so I don't know how many of you need this, but this is how I explain it to my mom. Said, all machine learning does is gives the computers the ability to learn without being explicitly programmed. Let me give you an example, Mom. Let's call this pattern recognition. Okay, over at this table, I have Dennis and I have Ryan. They're both men.
Wait, what?
They both have shirts on. They both have pants on. I think they both have jeans on, except that, and they both have underwear on. I mean, I don't know, but Dennis's shirt is white, Ryan's shirt is blue. Dennis has dark hair, Ryan has light hair. Ryan has glasses. Or gray. But what if I walked around this room, Mom, and I tried to create all of the likes? Okay, there are 7 people with shirts, 2 people have dark hair. There is no way I can scale pattern recognition. I can maybe do it with 2 people, but we'd all miss our plane if I tried to do it with the whole room. So what machine learning does is it makes pattern recognition easy. It allows it to scale. And by the way, we use a mathematical equation to do this called an algorithm. And all it does is it learns and makes predictions from data. Mom, let me give you an example of how you engage with machine learning and AI on a regular basis. Mom, you go to Google and you put in the word machine learning, it's going to have a whole bunch of data. It's going to learn and predict what the best answer is, and it's going to spit out those answers. That's all. There you go, Mom. 1-minute session in machine learning and AI. So is machine learning something that we should all be talking about as a business? Should we have this in our press releases? Ooh, Amarsis, they're doing machine learning and AI. Probably not. Because does Adam really care whether or not I'm doing machine learning and AI? No, Adam really cares about delivering on the promise of marketing, so I'm not getting granny panty emails in my inbox. Adam wants me to continue to buy leopard skin racer back double Ds. I'm sorry, but that's what he wants. So Adam says, okay, I got to do this. I'm gonna build me a system that allows me to do pattern recognition, machine learning, so I can spit out incentives or content to my customers. So I'm going to take all that purchase recency, frequency, monetary value, email, click, opens, whatever, customer data. I'm going to do a mathematical equation, and then I'm going to put in what I expect to increase in margin. I'm going to spit out offers. No, Adam's not going to do that. Adam's not a data scientist. Adam's a marketer. Adam went to school to develop marketing strategy. He went to school to do beautiful creative. He went to school to come up with great ways to use content, be it user-generated or self-generated or agency-generated. Adam did not go to school to build algorithms. So what we've done is we're trying to revolutionize that role for Adam. We're trying to take the left-hand side of an automated campaign, drag and drop, and we're trying to put a tool over or a layer over that algorithm piece that we talked about earlier and allow Adam to set his boundaries and make that AI layer invisible and still deliver on that promise of marketing. So I'm going to give you an example of this. Here's a solution with this tool within Emarsis. Let's go back to underwear. So Courtney on my team, Courtney's an incredible shopper. Courtney always gets a 40% discount. She manages to find the coupons, find the incentives, and retail me not, I don't care what she uses, but Courtney always gets, she never pays retail for underwear. I have a feeling Emily over there, who I've spent some time with, I think Emily, she really likes to get recommended styles and colors. Mark, on the other hand, his girlfriend, well, when he feels guilty, yeah, I'm just saying, he might go and buy her something quickly. He may not even need an incentive, but Mark tends to buy around certain times, maybe after weekends in Vegas that he goes every year in April with the boys. I'm just saying, there's a lot of recognition around the different needs of incentives. So what if Adam could say, okay, I want to get a 15% margin on this campaign. What if I only sent incentives at certain ranges and levels to the people who need them? So I'm going to send Courtney 40% off. I'm going to send Emily 15% off with some really compelling content around spring styles. And I'm only going to send Mark 2% or no percent, but I'm going to send it at a particular time. And with Nicole, hey, we know her buying habits. We're going to send her monthly, hey, if you purchase this, you get a free extra matching leopard skin pair of tap pants. So what if you could create incentives that met the needs of the customers? That's what Emarsis is doing. That's a good example of leveraging artificial intelligence and pattern recognition, machine learning to revolutionize the role of the marketer and start to deliver on the promise of marketing. So we have a customer in the UK who tested this, and I mean, it's a little scary, right? You're used to different things. Tested this, and they saw a 59% increase in margin by just leveraging AI for incentive offers. So it does work. And I will skip the little press release on that one. But what I will like to do is give us a couple things to take away. Data, folks, and we all know this, is our most valuable asset. Adam knew a lot about me. He just didn't know how to leverage that data in a way that personalized my experience. We do believe that machines are going to deliver on that promise of marketing, which is the true one-to-one interactions, but we need to make that no hype. We need to just do it and have people like my mother, who doesn't even know that Google has AI and machine learning involved, marketers as well. It's not scary. We all leverage it in our daily lives. It's not going to be better algorithms, folks. It's just going to be the way that we rethink the role of the marketer so that the marketer can focus on content, creative, and strategy, which is what they went to school for. And I hate this last bullet point, but my CMO put it in there because I think it makes me sound stupid, but whatever. Humans plus machines, we genuinely believe it's 1 + 1 = 3. So thank you, everybody, so much for putting up with my underwear story, and have a great rest of the day.
All right. Amazon, Auto Trader, and Zipcar, and many others. So please take a look at that. And also another one, we have a number of shows, as you know. If you go online, you'll see the full roster. But one in particular that I think has always been of interest to our email summit attendees is our cross-channel Brand Marketer Summit. And this year we're doing one in Tahoe, and that's going to be on August 16th through the 19th. We already have people involved from HP, from Home Depot, many others. The idea of this one really is talking about how you bring all these pieces together. And since email, as we keep hearing, is so much more central to that process of identifying people across channels, of being a real driver in building that database and allowing us to make connections across those channels. A lot of people from our email summit often come and attend the brand summit, or you have colleagues at your company who are interested in it. But I'm in the middle of programming that now, so if you're interested, let me know. Again, stevesmith@mediapost.com. Anyway, so let's get on with the show. There are some companies, when you hear about them, you just have to get them on stage. And that's exactly what she's the director of digital marketing there. They are another one of those companies that has a unique model, a unique product, has a whole series of challenges in how to explain what they do and how they do it, but also numerous constituencies that they have to address because they have a complex business model that has everything from a sort of version of a junkyard to a used car sales and buying business. So there are multiple constituencies that need to be connected together, need to be run from a single database. And that's what Laura's going to talk to us about today. Not only talk about this unique company, Pull Apart, but also the ways in which she is trying to get that unified point of truth across these different constituencies. Please welcome Laura Berkevin.
Good morning. Is this working? Can you guys hear me? Yes. Sweet. Who went on the party bus last night? No? Damn. Got it. Well, so I wanted to kick things off this morning with what I'm not going to be talking about. Uh-oh, my automations didn't work. Maybe I can try something. Real time. Any chance we can? No? Cool. Okay. So one of the things that I want to start with this morning is what I don't want to talk about. And I don't think you guys can see this right here, but off to the far right, what I don't want to talk about is the time that Google accepted a suggested edit into one of my store locations that read suck dick. I'm not kidding. It literally read suck dick, and then it had the address to my store location. That was a really fun conversation with Google. I also don't want to talk about the time I was blacklisted from MailChimp. We're not anymore, but. Or the time that my CEO found the pretty princess on my website. I have no idea how long that was up there, but somehow it got onto my website. Or the team that we launched, or excuse me, the CRM that I launched with our customer sales and support team, trained them to send coupons and all the impending screw-ups that happened after that. So I'm Laura Berkevin, run digital marketing and content at Pull Apart. I have a thing for donuts. Also love long walks on the beach, and if you don't, I feel like you're lying. So what I do want to talk to you guys about today is that outputs that are driven by inputs from the inbox, so kind of flipping the script, if you will. And one of the things that I'm very passionate about and that I believe is that marketing's highest calling is creating that feedback loop into product lines and services. And it's like, cool, what does that mean? So it's the experience. It's the experience, right? So we're primed to own the experience more than any other time before. So what does that look like? It looks like owning the conversation from the inputs across the channels as it relates to having conversations for business lines, for the products that go with that, and then the conversations we're having with our customers. And Seth Godin once said that marketers make change happen. That's what they do. And that's what we're here to do. So what is Pull Apart? Pull Apart is a pretty interesting company. I've been at the company for about 3 years. And what we do, we're a used auto parts superstore. So we buy old cars. I buy upwards of 10,000 a month, put them in our salvage yards. I have about 25. People come out and remove parts themselves. And we also sell used cars. We recycle everything. So I'm probably the greasiest green company that you've not heard of until today. Who's our customer, right? So my customer is someone who makes roughly $12 an hour. You know, think working parents, single parent, 3 kids, And all of a sudden they have their car break down, and it's the only car that they have. And they just don't have the budget to afford hundreds of dollars worth of car repair. They're often viewed as a nuisance in other stores. Security guard, checking them out. Creeper. They go to pop-up clinics. Their bank is a payday loans. They go to a teacher conference and the teacher tells them that they're not doing enough for their kids, and their boss tells them if they're late one more time, they're gonna get fired. And so for them, car repair comes down to a choice between medicine, food to your family, and those are really impossible choices. And so what Pull Apart does, what we try to do, is provide them with a cost-accessible way to get their car back on the road without having to make those decisions, so that they can focus on putting food on the table, so that they can focus on having a roof over their children's head. And that's really kind of what I want to talk to you guys about today. And it's the case study of how the input from the inbox influenced our company's focus and source of truth. And if a fancy junkyard can do it, you guys can too. So the thing that we believe at Pull Apart is that having a strong, excellent customer experience is a competitive advantage in today's marketplace. And that we're really good at it. Except we were not. And so we went through a diagnosis of what was going on, establishing the guiding policies, instead of actions that we're going to go about to correct what was going on. And so what this is a snapshot of a process that I designed when I first came on to Pull Apart. And it helped us to first understand what was going on with our customer experience. How do we even know that it was off? And so what this was designed to do was start to capture all the feedback that we were receiving, either direct or indirect, so that we could manage and measure, respond real time if we needed to, and then use that information to feed it back into the business owners, used car sales, used auto parts, car buy, HR. What can we be doing better? What are we doing well? Where do we stand to improve? Where are the business opportunities? Can you do me a huge favor? Can you pour some water? Thank you. And so what this was the start of Voice of Customer. And it all started with an inbox. And what I mean specifically by that is the moment where we took over customer service. Thank you so much. Y'all talk amongst yourselves, just getting some water. Perfect, thank you. Okay. And this is where we became strategic change agents, because I had over 1,000 people reaching out every month, via email no less, asking questions. But we couldn't be bothered by that because we were self-service. We were too focused on that. Okay, so what this says, so kind of jumping into our strategic framework for learning and doing. The truth will set you free, but first it'll make you miserable, or just drink a lot, right? So I have a bottle of Tito's in my office, and I joke that it's water now, because I drank all of it. I just replaced it. And so the thing that we had to do is kind of look at our current situation. So we had all this input from our inbox. We saw everything coming away, these questions. We had complaints, ideas even. And so with that in mind, oh man, it was real time. So we found that we were severely lacking across many touch points. So we had the wrong information. Really what it came down to is three things, right? We had the wrong information, we had the wrong focus, we had the wrong investment. So we underestimated the digital savviness of our customers. So just because you buy used auto parts from a junkyard doesn't mean you don't have a cell phone. My customers are mobile just as well as anyone else. We focused on the nuances of processes versus the experience versus conversations with customers. And we just weren't investing in our people or technology. And so at Pull Apart, one of the things that we find to be very important is that we have two customers. We have our internal customers, our employees, And we have our external customers, those that buy from us. So our internal customers, our employees, talk more to the external customers than we do. So if we're not paying attention to them, what the hell's going on? Well, I found out through the inbox, right? So from here, kind of moving into, get some water, into establishing our guiding principles, or excuse me, policies, which is just a framework to kind of keep you on track. They aren't necessarily a set of actions. Is that how can we get the right information, where do we get it from, to reduce friction from our customers? So one of the things that I like to approach that from is how easy is it to do business with you? Turns out, not so easy. You have to laugh too to keep from crying. How do we create a source of truth that helps our team to stay on focus, the right focus? So things change every day. How do we know that the new policy we put out for used car sales is working? How do we know that when we have a complaint for car buy, that we get that to the right team member so we can not only solve it, but we can also learn from it? And then the right investment. Oddly enough, if you don't have the right people on the bus, you got a bad bus. Bus is not going anywhere, unless you need parts, I got that. But, so we built out the team with supporting tools to make it sing, right? And then what are the actions? So these are the things that we're actually doing today. Right? So we did an entire employee and customer friction map. Create a company knowledge base and FAQ. Let me just tell you, it was such a treat when I came on board to have to respond to customer service questions with no FAQ or knowledge base. That's been so fun to build. But when you're elbow deep in everything, it makes you very appreciative of just the basics of running a company and how much we take for granted. We launched a customer sales and support team, which is owned by marketing. So marketing owns customer service. And it's a huge part of my feedback loop, not only in the content that I create, but the conversations that we have, the products that we talk about, and the different types of services, right? So one, for example, is more help on the yard, right? So we have a service truck that goes throughout the yard. And if people need help getting parts up to the front of the building, that's what we offer. Integrating Zendesk with a CRM. I nerd out over that. That's really cool stuff. Allows me to do my job much better, and it starts to create a 360 view. A real-time issue resolution process. So making sure that when somebody complains on whatever channel, we're getting it to the person who can respond, if it's not the person who's receiving that complaint. And then, of course, employee-focused recruiting, training, and development. And this one here, I'm just going to touch on for a moment, is putting our voice of customer report into operations. So this is just a screen grab of our VOC report. And again, the majority of this information comes from an inbox. And what's great about this is that every month I sit down with our retail team and I go through all the things that have happened the month prior. What are we paying attention to? What are we watching? What's going on in the store? What's going on in the display yard? And it's no longer a marketing tool. It's actually an executive tool. So it influences business operations. Oops, sorry. It influences business operations. So, in summation, marketers can reimagine the inbox and create a unified point of truth. So it's maintaining a clear understanding of who your customer is, and not exactly who they are, but who you are to them, right? Do you matter? Can you be replaced? And that's creating those guiding principles that upper management can adopt and maintain. And then using that information to influence product and service design and operationalizing that. So more specifically, doing what you can with what you have within the constraints of the business. And that's it.
Thank you very much, Laura. What questions do you have for Laura?
I don't know questions.
Nope.
You in the back.
Back?
Thank you for pouring my water again. Randy, I'm Laura. Nice to meet you. Thank you.
Thanks. I'm Mitch Wagaman with eData Source. I understand the goal of what you're doing was to drive that better customer experience and that type of thing, but how did that backtrack to your team experience, the buy-in of your people into providing a better customer experience and I'm assuming it had a positive effect on having everybody engaged and involved and really knowing that, but how did that work out?
Yeah, as in how was it adopted, or what were the impacts of it?
Impacts.
Yeah, so one of the things that we found was that the impacts of having better training is that our employee retention became higher, right? So we were actually having a pretty high turnover. So we were able to reduce that at least by 20% over 6 months. The other part was being able to get the FAQ up online and launch Zendesk, which is what I use for customer sales and support, the ticketing software. And so I reduced us from 900 tickets to about 400 every month. So they're able to self-serve. And those are two very immediate ones I can think of. Does that kind of help answer your question? Mm-hmm.
How did this process also help you start organizing and better implementing getting feedback from customers? Since it started out by, I think, that smart process of just realizing, ask the customer what the experience is, or start harvesting whatever you can from whatever sources you have to better understand what that experience is. And I think that itself is a great step, because it's sort of a question I've asked a few times over the last few days, is how are we really measuring customer experience? Sure. And generally we're tending to use those sort of blunt instruments of data points rather than going and asking the customer.
Right,
And I think, so where you started was really interesting, and I'm curious, through this process, did you now start formalizing and rationalizing a bit how you do the customer feedback? So you're getting it better, it's more efficient, it's driving into the buckets you need it to drive into?
Right. Yeah, so it's evolved quite a bit. When I first launched the online reputation and listening program, I was pulling from the review sites, right? So there's Facebook, Google, namely, or where guys go and say good things or bad things, quite polarizing like anyone else. And then the contact form on our website. And there's also comments I pull in from other social feeds. And now we're starting to pull in conversations that are happening at the stores. So some of the tools that we've implemented along the way, and now it's just remember to answer your question a bit more, is that we've actually created a way for our store managers to address issues real time in the stores. So what does that look like? So if somebody complains about a purchase, our policy today is that they get store credit. But sometimes it's worth giving them their money back. So there's a process for that now. And so that's another input that we would get to then understand, okay, what's going on there? Is it an issue with the way that we do pricing? Is it an issue the way that it looks online, how we're talking about it in person, which by the way is a real thing? It's a very big friction point for us. And then on the car buy side, we actually call customers back. So when they sell us their vehicle, we call them back and we ask them how their service was. So that's another touch point and input. So it's now moved from just the passive listening into the active listening. And it's digital, it's in person, and it's on the phone. And it's still a work in progress because I have all these different touch points that we don't quite have a grasp on just yet, but we're starting to pull in.
Is this, going back to how you described your constituency, is this one that wants email connections with you, or
Yes.
do they prefer to go to phone?
Yes. No, it's, so they absolutely want email. Phone is an interesting thing for us. So I've found that for customer service as it relates to that, when somebody has a question, in whatever channel, if it's not answered quickly enough, they're likely to pick up the phone, right? We default to the phone. So email does very well for us for communicating product launches, upcoming events. Candidly, my acquisition strategy to date has really been focused on flip the funnel. So flipping the funnel is looking at your existing customers to drive more. And that's where we hit the road bump with, the customer experience, because if you have a bad customer experience, then your acquisition strategy is going to suck too.
Laura, thank you very much. That was really interesting. So we've been hearing so much about customer first a little bit, and talk about what's some basic advice for the next steps that companies need to take to get there. There are really very out there that are able to implement this ideal of a customer-first approach across all of their different channels now. So we wanted to, and I want to thank Ryan Phelan, who helped ideate this panel, talking to brands at various stages in their process to talk about the ways in which they've moved towards this ideal, advice and steps towards getting there. To take the lead on this panel, we have our own Ross Fadner, who's Director of Events here at MediaPost. He's my partner in crime and programs a number of our events, including OMA LA, which is going to be out on the West Coast next month. Please welcome Ross on the panel.
Hello. Great. Thanks, Steve. Morning, everyone. Thanks for being here. Just start this one off by letting my panelists here introduce themselves. Tell us a little bit about who they are, what they do, and where they work. We'll go right down the line. Go ahead, Micah.
Good morning. Micah Fenning from Scott's Miracle-Gro. I am relatively new to email, but I've been in our digital group for 3 years, focusing on our Connected Yard initiative, which is trying to bring technology to maybe one of the oldest categories in the world, and I will tell you all how to apply fertilizer after this. So thank you.
I'm Amy Jordan. I manage the email marketing and app programs for Carlson Residor Hotel Group, and it is a global program, specifically working with Asia Pacific and the Americas, but also some lifecycle messaging in Europe.
I'm Matt Casson. I'm the Director of CRM Marketing at Barnes & Noble. So I manage our email operations team, our lifecycle marketing strategy, marketing automation, and our data analytics for marketing as well.
Ryan Phelan, VP of Marketing for Adestra. I'm the head of marketing here in the United States, North America. I've been in the industry about 17 years, and that's it. That's all I got. I need more coffee.
No, yes, me too, honestly. So this panel was Ryan's idea, so he's going to kind of help me co-moderate if he's going to jump in where he can. But most of my questions are going to be for the brands on the panel. So I'd like them to start off by talking a little bit about where email fits into their company's marketing mix. So just broadly talk about that a little bit. Go ahead, Micah.
Sure. So we're a consumer packaged goods company. We sell through Home Depot, Lowe's, Walmart are our 3 biggest customers. So email's always just been sort of a content and bringing us top of mind with our consumers. We have what we call email reminder services that for our Scotts and Miracle-Gro brands that really just tell you once a month, hey, here's some things you should be doing this month. We have just gotten pretty geo-targeted, and when I say that, I mean like 5 regions in the U.S., not like your zip. So we've got a long way to go, but I think that it's been sort of just a content and education tool for so long that now that we've just started selling direct, certain products, very limited, now we're seeing return on investment. So a lot of you talked about ROI over the last few days. Well, guess what? Our leadership sees ROI on email now, and it's now the coolest thing they've ever seen, and they want to grow it exponentially. So that's good for me. I'll be drinking a lot to her last comment, I think, while we get this on board, but it's really exciting.
So email for us has always been very offer focused. So we support 8 brands in a loyalty program, and when I started almost 2 years ago, it was pretty much only offers, not a lot of life cycle. So it's been a transition for the 2 years that I've been there to really try to help people understand that it's not just about pushing the offers out, and it's really about hitting people and experiencing, getting them to experience as they plan their process, and not just here's 15%, here's 20%, here's 25%. And so that's kind of been our journey, and so that's where we're at now.
At Barnes, email is really a driver of how we interact with our members, as well as really how we really deliver our merchandised content editorially to our customers in addition to lifecycle. So members, if you sign up for our membership program, part of the benefits that you're going to get are going to be additional coupons beyond what a non-member would get, and email is a primary vehicle to deliver that and drive store visits that way. But we also use email to personalize content to the customers, deliver product recommendations, drive customers to store events. So it's definitely a critical part of what we do.
For us, beyond just being an email service provider, we're really I'm a B2B marketer, so I'm going out trying to get leads and qualify leads from events like this or events like Internet Retailer or whatever it is. So for email, it's not only to keep the relationship going, but to progress the customer down a path of education about what the product does, what the company is, much like most of the B2B companies are out there. So we're doing so many real events where we're meeting the person and then using email in a secondary way to follow up with them and to nurture them down a path. So it's essential for us to educate the end user, but on a B2B level.
So yeah, so speaking of B2B, let's talk a little bit about some of the third parties that you guys work with. Now, you can tell us what kinds of third parties you work with. If you don't want to tell us who they are specifically, but tell us a little bit about what they do well for you, what could be improved, and then what they're working on currently that you're most excited about. So we can go down the line again.
I always get the first question.
Yeah, or why don't we start with
It's
Matt then? How about Matt? You go ahead first.
Sure. Okay. We use quite a few different vendors for different aspects of our email marketing program. Ranging from using Epsilon as our email service provider, Experian as our data hygiene. Customers come in, cleanse the address, confirm your address type of situation. Power Inbox is adaptive content through Epsilon for us. We use Nielsen to get additional customer insights, demographic insights, or Experian data appends. So there's quite a big vendor infrastructure for us to provide customer data that we could then either segment our customers or personalize content back to our customers.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Amy.
So we also use Epsilon as a vendor, and then we also have been testing with Movable Ink as well. We do have a data partner that we've just started to work with, and that's kind of in the process. We haven't been using any of it yet. But from our perspective, we are actually currently in the process of transitioning from Epsilon's Dream Tool to Harmony. So I would say that there isn't really anything that they're not doing for us right now. It's more on our end that we're trying to catch up with the technology that's available. And so we're really excited about the ability to really expand our lifecycle campaigns through their automation capabilities, as well as incorporate our app messaging and hopefully down the roadmap SMS as well.
We work with Trendline, who I know Morgan wasn't able to be here this week because of his son's graduation, or one of his kids' graduation, but they've been a really great partner, and I know that they're here quite often. And then we use ExactTarget as our ESP, and then we've been working with Anthem Marketing Solutions out of Chicago they house our data, clean our data, append with Experian information on household. We're interested in learning about how to get more targeted and precise, because I think the more we know about your location, the better education we can provide. One of the big issues that we face, though, is I think because we're such a small team, we've sort of changed the definition of the team over the last year, is working with these partners. I think for so long, we've got some legacy issues that just need to be cleaned up, but also we've relied on them so heavily that we know very little about what's there. So that sort of transparency and openness is something that we're working on, and it's really no one's fault. It's just something that I would always caution working with big companies. Sometimes trust is great, but sometimes we just give it away, and then we're like, can we see our data? Oh, well, that'll be a little while, and that gets a little scary when you have new people involved.
Yeah, so you guys are all collecting lots of data from lots of different sources. So how do your third parties help you sort of integrate all these sources of data, and just talk a little bit about how that works. Go ahead. Any of you?
Yeah, mine will be the most boring answer, so you guys have much cooler answers. Well, we just, we have processes in place that we work with Anthem specifically to manage all of our data so that we can use it across channel. But the biggest thing that we try to do is just understand your location, because again, if we can get your location, we're going to send you targeted products, because we actually have EPA constraints of, if we tell you a product that you shouldn't be using, it's not going to be a very good outcome for us. So really it's just relying on them to really do all the work. Like, we really just tell them the overall strategy, and our partners do the creative, they build the lists, and they send it out. So we're really, we're reliant on them heavily.
Yeah, and I think from our perspective, so we don't have a ton of partners that we use, and so a lot of the data work is done internally, but working with Epsilon, we do have daily data feeds as well as APIs, and similarly with Movable Ink. And so our issue is really more internally. We have so many systems, being a franchise-based organization, that all of our hotels collect a lot of information, and getting them all back to us and making sure it's accurate and getting that unique customer view has been one of our biggest challenges.
I would say the pulling it all together part is the hardest part. I mean, I'm guessing for maybe all of us here. Many of us may have a data warehouse that has all of your data, like in that case, or from different places. So you may not even have a data warehouse that has all of the data together. I know from our end, there's store purchase, .com purchase, wishlist, .com browse behavior, stores, store information, store events. There's all sorts of information from different places. And then you have your ESP, which ultimately has a scripting language, or like a FreeMarker or AMP script or JavaScript that can read something, but often has a hard time writing something, right, to kind of pull it all together. So often there's that hole of like, well, what's the sort of CRM solution or the process that can query from your database, create essentially like the file or the personalized content information to then place it into your ESP so it can pick it up in that workflow. We created our own internal process because there's many needs along those ways, from creating an individual campaign to stacking campaigns up and prioritizing them. If you have 50 live triggered lifecycle campaigns running every day, a customer could qualify for all 50. You only want to send one. Which one is it going to be? And if they got that one previously, should there be a cooldown period? And there's all these business rules. And I feel like that is kind of if I would say to the industry, where can you focus? Like, I think that's a huge opportunity, because I believe many of us here, from talking to you guys, many of us are doing it with internal solutions. Because every vendor plays a different role, but many vendors don't play the role, the heart of the role. And that's where internal solutions come in.
Yeah, Ryan, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, it's interesting. So Forrester, for example, has changed its, there are certain people at Forrester that have changed their perspective to look at that the challenge for the marketer these days is that surrounding their CRM is all the best-in-class vendors that they can pick that help them execute their business needs. And that the marketer's biggest challenge is the integration points between those two. And you described it great, is how do you pass that data back and forth to make sure that you don't duplicate efforts, you don't oversaturate consumers with data that is not coordinated, and how do you make it easier? So what you're seeing, I think, by a lot of technologies, and it's our challenge as well, working with partners, but also on our own marketing stack, is making sure that the integrations are complete, robust, and communicate with everybody else. So it's creating that ecosystem that is the biggest challenge. But it sounds like everybody's going through that on this panel is, gosh, I just want to make sure my data talks to the right people so I don't send, Mary in Dublin, Ohio, 15 email messages in a day just because she qualified on a point scale or qualified because of a model or an algorithm. The best machine learning still needs to look at the disparate systems that are not connected to it to make sure that it's not ruining the customer experience.
So I want to stick with you there, Ryan, because this panel, again, was your idea. So what are the 3 steps then to scaling first-person messaging, in your opinion?
So to scale it, number one, you've got to lay out your infrastructure, right? To get to first-person marketing, you've got to lay out your touch points and your data sources, right? So in laying that out, then you move into kind of the second thing. You create this map. The second thing that I see is, what data do you have and where are your gaps? You can have the greatest first-party data in the world. You can have robust information from preference, from purchase history, from expressed and inferred preference. You've got all this different stuff on first-party data that you can get. But and that's great, right? But the part of it that you look at is what's missing is what third-party data is available to complete that picture. And the third-party data that is out there is so accessible, so easy. Unlike any other time in our history in the digital world, we can actually go through an API call and say, I want Mary's information on this and this and this and this, pull that back, and then be able to target more effectively on third-party data, or what Mary looks like outside of her experience with Barnes & Noble. So you're mapping out all of your sources and all of your integrations and all your data. You're looking at what do you have and what do you not have. And then the third part is really, how do you go get that? How do you action that data into your system and use it effectively to balance between creepy data, which you want to avoid, which is using data that Mary doesn't expect you to have, but how do you then incorporate that into targeting? So let's say that Mary, you don't know if she has kids in the home for you. So you go out to one of the big data houses and you get presence of children in the home from one of the big data houses. So then you have to decide, okay, I've got this, now what am I going to do with it? Am I going to be blatant and says, hey, Mary, we think your kids would want this? No, that's creepy data. You go back and you say, gosh, here's some kids' books as a tertiary offer to see if Mary resonates with that. Those three things really help you get to that first-person marketing goal, which is just being smarter with your marketing because the accessibility of the data and the ability to action it.
Mm-hmm. So for our brands here, where are you on this path? Where would you say your brand's at today? And how did you get to the point where you're at?
Well, there's a couple things that we use to, thank you for giving me some examples.
It's early, we all need more coffee.
I got it now. Weather is the easy one. So we pull in weather data that allows us to be what we believe to be more helpful in our recommendations and our advice. But a big thing is now that we just recently purchased a stake in Bonnie Plants, which is a live goods, like all of your edible, your veggies and herbs at Home Depot and Lowe's. And it's been terrific because now it opens up this whole world of, well, now we can go to Scripps and say, hey, Food Network, like, we want access to all these recipes, and we're going to start to use that as additional data for us to say, what are people, like, what are your users liking? What are they clicking on? What are they favoriting? And then we're going to go back and say, okay, should we recommend them a tomato if they love pasta and Italian spaghetti? So it's really trying to get personal, but to your point, not in a way where we're like, hey, buy this for your kids. Like, that'll be a little weird. But we're trying to build, I think one of the big things that results in is a need for new and different content for us. So we have a lot of content that's like how to build a raised bed garden. Well, that's kind of boring. No offense to my content writers. But I think the more impactful is get your kids outside, plant a garden where they'll eat more vegetables and fruit. So yes, you can send that to someone that has kids, but I don't think that's too creepy, I hope. No. But that's kind of, we're looking at content partners on there too, I think, as third party in a way that we haven't before.
You bring up a good point. I think the creepy data thing, I think inherently we as marketers all know it, we ignore it. When we use data that's inappropriate or go one step too far, I think our gut reaction go, ooh, I don't know. That's what we should be listening to. Mm.
Yeah, I think where we are, as I mentioned, we're kind of going through the process of adding in the data, so we're kind of in that second step that you talked through. But the thing that was the biggest kind of lesson for me at the company that I work for is, and I think is a big step that you don't want to overlook, is that first step and really evaluating the organizational readiness. So I kind of came in very gung-ho. I saw a lot of things that could be easily improved and changed, and my boss kind of asked me to put together some strategic recommendations. And I went forward, and the plan that was put forth was what we needed to do, but then it was kind of like we needed to take a step back because we hadn't done that foundational work that really said, okay, where are our pitfalls, and we can't actually execute on X, Y, and Z until this point in time. And so that's kind of my biggest piece of advice, is make sure you kind of go through that first process and don't overlook it, because it is really important to kind of know where you need to fill in the gaps first.
I think Barnes is definitely on the way to where we want to be, but we've had, I would say, learnings and struggles to overcome, and we're still in the thick of some of the problem solving that we're trying to do. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I was thinking along what you were saying, maybe with if 3 steps, I would say know your data, and I think my team and I spent a couple of years really learning our data, because often in order to unlock your data, which may be a step 2, your IT team or whomever is saying, okay, well, what do you need? And they don't mean like, oh, I want to do a recommendation email. They mean like, there's all the different data sources, and your sales feed has 25 columns. Do you need 10 columns? Or, they need that level of detail, and you need to know it as well as they do to request the right data to then be able to set up really data-driven emails. So it took us, so we learned the data, and we've unlocked the data and had then created sort of the processes of setting up the infrastructure to do it. And we've had definite, I would say stumbles or I would say internal problem solving along the way to try to reach scalability. So I feel like we're in a better place actually, now than we have been in a while, but it's taken us a while to get there.
So for those of you who feel like you're a little bit earlier or one of the first or second steps, what are you learning from your competitors? And I'd like to ask Amy that in particular. Who are you like? Well, you have some big competitors out there. I mean, are you learning anything from watching what they're doing? And I don't know. Do you have anything to say?
So I mean, I certainly follow all of our competitors and I get all of their emails. But I think, and there's definitely things that we pull from them. But I think the thing that's really hard to not get focused on from that standpoint is that you don't know what the decisions are being made in the back end that are giving you the emails that you're getting. But also, our customers are very different than Marriott's and Hilton's, and it's really trying to understand exactly who our customers are and their travel behaviors. And we have a very different problems than I'm sure that they do in terms of getting people in, getting people to come back. We have a very large share of people that book via Expedia and the third-party channels, and so that's one of our biggest initiatives, and it's an issue for everybody, but I think in particular for us, it's we get a lot of people in that way, but then we don't get a lot of their data. So, so yes, we do certainly look at our competitors, and I do oftentimes take inspiration from that, but it's trying to keep that balance of remembering that we're not them, and they have different problems too.
Does anybody else have anything to say about their competitors?
I've got a good. So back when I was on the retail side. We always used to, and this was 6-7 years ago, we were all looking at the competitive real estate in retail. So it was retail store. And we were watching one of our competitors, and we kept coming back to stuff they were doing. And we kept trying to imitate it, and we all thought that was a great idea and whatever, and they're so smart, they must be putting all this stuff into research and la 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 la, and we did this stuff and we were seeing lucrative results. And so I met the guy at a conference that actually was the head of this program, and I started talking to him. About midway through the conversation, I'm like, you're an idiot. You don't know what you're doing. And so went back and I said, we're stopping all of this. Because this guy doesn't have a clue what he's doing, and he's just making it up as he goes. And so, which has led me to a belief that always observe your competitors, never imitate your competitors. Never do what they're doing, but always be aware of what they're doing. Because to your point, you made a perfect point. You don't know what their internal systems are. You don't know if it's being run by a moron. I mean, it's that kind of a challenge that really, if you observe it and adapt it, never imitate it.
This is hard to follow that. I don't know. Yeah, just drop the mic and walk off the stage. So two things that I would add that are a little bit different, but I would consider a lot of the brands in the room to think about is one, we look at our retailers and how they're communicating with email, or really just how are they looking at their personal information with their consumers. And we learn a lot from that. Now, do we have all the data they have? No, but we're at least learning, and we're making sure that our message maybe even resonates. And the second thing is, in a category like ours, Scott's Miracle-Gro, one of the benefits is we have really high market share. We're the biggest in the category. Great, okay, well, guess what? The Wall Street's investment bankers still want growth. So what we've looked at is really different categories that mirror ours in certain ways, and we look at that and say, how do they communicate with their consumers? What are they doing that's really, really innovative, and how could we take that? So I think even if you're in a place where you're like, well, we don't have somebody that's like an apples to apples comparison, there are ways to learn from other best practices.
Right on. So as you forge ahead, where are you now versus where would you like to be in 5 years for each of the brands here?
5 years.
10 years.
10 years.
Back
I'll
here
take
on
5.
the beach.
Yeah, retired. And where we are today is
Second that.
we're really on, like I was joking beforehand that I think we weren't even at step 1. We were like 0.5 or something like that. But we're going to get there. I think we're going to really improve over the next 12 months in just the number of campaigns, the personalization we're going to get to, the ROI that we're going to be able to calculate, which is all going to help us grow. But I think in 5 years, we have made strategic investments in mobile applications that help you get reminders, and they have a reason to be on your phone. That's a big problem with mobile apps. A lot of times when you say, yeah, I want to have a mobile app, why in the world am I going to keep you on the phone? So we've built apps that we think can help people be successful, but also can stay on their phone. And then we've recently invested in 2 different Internet of Things devices, and have now started our own direct-to-consumer commerce. All of that, really, the whole purpose of it from the very beginning was to get a deeper relationship with our customer, because we just don't know who you are, because we lose you at the retail brick and mortar. So doing all those things, that's really where we're starting to try to have all the data, like I was talking with some people from Amazon, that's really the flywheel approach they look at, is start small, really go fast, learn. I know we've talked about a couple times, like, how do you sell this into your organization? 5 years is a really long horizon for most leaders. So you say, look, we're going to do this over the next 2 years, and it's going to grow to this, and it's going to grow to that. So that's how we're going to go, is we're going to try to automate where we can help you automate. And I think it's going to open up a ton of things, whether it's services, on-demand services, subscription, replenishment models, things that we've never done before. So it's going to be a wild, crazy ride for Scott's Miracle-Gro.
So where are your partners now versus where you want them to be in 5 years?
Sure. Like I said previously, we have just started this transition process with Epsilon into their new tool, and so I know they're constantly building and adding in new components to increase the omni-channel capabilities. So, like I said, we're kind of playing catch up a bit because they're at least one channel ahead of us in regards to what we have deployed. But our ultimate goal would be to have that full kind of omni-channel incorporated together with our paid digital, our social, and right now at Carlson, we're actually in a really exciting 5 years for us. We were recently purchased, and a large investment's been made in terms of bringing all of our websites and all of our technology up to the highest standard. And so the next 18 to 24 months especially will be a huge influx of new opportunities for us. So,
Yeah, and I definitely see the email platform as really having the opportunity, and I know it's starting to happen already, but I really feel like the email platform, the email address is key, right, across multiple other channels. I mean, we use, you connect your email address to your push platform. A customer logs into your app, they log in with their email address, you know who they are, you find them in your CRM system, and you send them back a personalized push notification. Push notification actually starts with the email address, or can. Your email, direct mail, identifying the customer in your email platform, CRM or email list retargeting on Facebook, using your customer segmentation that you have in your email platform. And if your member didn't renew and lapsed, go find that customer and do a sponsored Facebook ad. Those are things that I think we're all probably looking at, maybe some of us are doing, and I think the platforms aren't really there yet to do it really well. But I think hopefully everyone go out there and make it happen if you're listening.
You should come talk to us. No, I'm just kidding. You outlined the reason, the idea behind this panel, right? If you look across every digital interaction, it starts with the email address. From your phone, your bank account, your doctors, your car insurance, buying a car, buying a house, it all starts with an email address. Email has become more important than your social security number. If you really think about the information that you can glean from pulling an email address from all of those digital interactions, the signals that are created and captured, all now go to painting a picture of the consumer. So when we talk about first-person marketing or marketing, in a more real way beyond one-to-one. One-to-one is an archaic term. What we're talking about now is taking the email address, using it as an identification tool with third-party data to pull in all that information to find out who they are outside of the experience with your brand. And so email becomes vital at the core of what digital marketing is, and more important than most other focuses, because we can identify the consumer. So your idea of, and your thoughts around the capture of an email address and really finding out who that person is and using it as identification transcends your own CRM into external data, and how do you use that to benefit you through those three things that I outlined before. How do you start to incorporate that into your business and make it actionable, not only in email, but to your point, into social media, into all the other things you can action digitally. Email becomes the center of that from an identification standpoint.
Right on. Well, with that, Steve, you want to take questions from the
Yeah,
audience?
we have questions for the panel.
Yeah.
I've got a question for the group, if we don't have any questions out there.
Yeah.
Real quickly, how agreeable are your executives to the moves you're making to get closer to the consumer through all the things we've been talking about? Are they on board? Are they hesitant? Are they still seeing email as a mass medium? What's the temperature inside of your executives?
Yeah, I think from my perspective, my direct managers and people that I report up into certainly understand that email is more than just a mass communication channel. But like a lot of organizations, there's other entities like our operations team and even our branding teams that feel like it is more of that mass media. So it's definitely a bit of a give and take between getting the right message to the right person and getting the message out to as many people as possible. And so, like I said, when I started, it was very much the mass communication portal. And so I've kind of been taking this opportunity to build an internal team myself, because kind of taking some of the decision making out of our branding team's hands. So we have an creative team and copywriting, because a lot of what the issues were around was, they were creating their promotional calendars for X offer, and everything was the same and pretty static across every single channel. And so email obviously has its own unique things that we need to take into account. So so my team my management has been great at supporting that, but it's a constant education with some other people in the organization.
I'd say, our management is definitely supportive of investing in the email channel to get us, to help us reach where we need to be. But a big question, really decision making that we are looking at is, are we pushing data out to vendors, or are we doing all the data manipulation internally and just dropping lists in different channels? Mm-hmm. I think many, IT infrastructure often doesn't want to do the pushing. So I think that's a hot topic.
Certainly.
I would just add that at the very highest levels of our business, getting closer to the consumer is a very top priority. But I think to all the email marketers in companies out here, one thing we've seen is that brands have really driven the email conversation. We've just been sort of the intermediary that's pushed the send button. And that's got to change with a lot of the technology we're seeing to say, look, you can, like what Stephanie was talking about the other day with EA, was you can have certain selections, you can improve the copy and creative to a high level, but to do this really well and to do this fast and at scale, you've got to give up some of the ad hoc control.
We're going to continue this in our roundtable at the end of the morning on this very topic. Ross and panel, thanks very much. Here's Chris. Listen, you're going to have to help Chris, who's a little bit of a wallflower, come out a little bit. His voice doesn't carry well in a room, and I don't even know where the hell he comes from.
Because you're one day to your grandkids. I was there at EIS, Amelia Island, 2017, when Chris Marriott blew everybody's mind, revealing the secret to great email lists. So glad you're all still here. Glad somebody liked that. Why am I presenting for Certain Source? Quick, before I get into it. Lori Clore was here. She had to go home for graduation. She's president. Truth be told, they're a major client of Marketing Democracy. And I built a relationship with them because, as some of you who attended my roundtable had heard, the main business of marketing democracy is managing vendor selection or consulting with marketers who are looking to switch ESPs. Part of that requires an extensive requirements gathering phase, and during the requirements gathering phase, it came up time and time again from our marketing clients, what about acquisition? Who's doing anything interesting in acquisition? And unfortunately, the answer was and is, from an ESP perspective, none of them are doing anything in acquisition because historically they've shied away from acquisition for a lot of reasons, most of them good, involving what kind of reputation their clients would have, how their reputation would decline as they added new emails from dubious sources into their list. So so what we went out and looked at and evaluated the market and said, who is doing interesting things in acquisition? And one of the companies that we looked at was a company called Certain Source. So that's why I'm talking about them today. So one of the most quoted or famous quotes from the advertising world, you've probably all heard of it at one point or another, is John Wanamaker. And he said this probably 100 years ago. And he said, half the money I spend on advertising is wasted. The trouble is I don't know which half. I think from an email marketing perspective, it's even worse than that. And we've heard this time and time again. You might not agree 100% with this, but nevertheless, it's even worse. Half the money I spend on acquisition is wasted. The trouble is, I don't know, 80% of the money is wasted. The trouble is, I don't know which 80. And that's really been the way acquisition has traditionally been handled is that the vendors, and I'm not saying anything about vendors, but the whole business is built upon, you want a CPA of 50 cents. You want X number of new leads. Well, not every lead, of course, is worth the same amount of money after they get in your inbox. Some of them do good things, some of them do really terrible things, some of them complain. So whenever you're buying leads at scale, you're buying tons of new email subscribers, what happens is you're getting a mix of good, that 20%, and a mix of bad, the 80%. If you knew which was the good 20%, you could do something about it. But it's not, the system is not built that way. You are asked to pay 50 cents per lead, $2.50 per lead, whatever it is, for every lead before you know if it's good or bad, regardless of whether it is good or bad. So let's face it, if you are buying at a 20% good, 80% bad, and you're feeling good because you're paying 50 cents a lead, and you got them down to that, quickly do the math. You're not paying 50 cents a lead because you're really only 20% of them are leads you want. So you're paying $2.50 a lead. And if that was the only thing, okay, you could accept that. But the problem is the 80% of those leads are oftentimes not benign. Most of them may be benign, but not all of them. Some of them, and I'm going to show you it quickly because I don't have a lot of time, quickly. Some of them are very, very dangerous to be putting into your inbox, and yet you're doing it. All the time you're doing it. The key secret then is transparency. Putting transparency into the marketer's hands so you can see not only what you're putting in your inbox before you put it in your inbox, but how it performs after it gets into your inbox. Because again, they don't all perform the same. A lot of times you get people, if you get them in an inbox, we were talking about this at my roundtable the other day, where you put someone, you give a great offer and somebody gives you your email address to get the offer, and I call them one and dones. They come in, they purchase once, and they never do anything ever again. Well, if you're trying to build your short-term revenue, that's a good solution. If you're trying to build a CRM database with a great reputation, high inbox delivery, that's not a good lead. So, Certain Source basically is a platform that provides transparency. Think of it, thank you, Ryan, as middleware, as a middleware platform that sits between the sources of all of your leads, all of your inbound leads, whether they be organic to your site, whether they be through co-reg, whether it be through third-party sweepstakes, affiliate, regardless of where those leads come from, Certain Source is the middleware that sits between that lead source and your inbox. So what's getting into your database? These are 4 clients of Certain Source. And one of the things that they do is they send the welcome. Wow, let's get out of that spotlight. It's much better. One of the things they do, beyond doing a 4-step vetting process using Forensic and Webula and bouncing against your database for your unsubs and blah, 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 they also send the welcome stream. because that's the most dangerous time in new leads. For a new lead, that's the thing that really your ESPs are most concerned about, that welcome stream. So Certain Source can send that. So all the leads, and these are 4 different clients of Certain Source. Several of them are using co-reg and other channels to generate the new leads. One of them is using co-reg only. Wonder which one. Brand number 2, 32% unsub to open, 3.9% complaint to open, with the click to open of 6.2. That's toxic. There is no way that's not going to destroy your inbox delivery if you're putting those into your CRM database at that level of unsub open or that complaint open. And these are Gmail's sort of terms in regards to how they rate your deliverability. So these are things that Certain Source sees before it lands in your inbox and can fix. It's not just that they see this, but over time they can say, by shutting off the sources, in this brand's case, this was initial. Over time what they did, and again, this is an example of inbox optimization. These are all, that's why I call it Certain Source. It's done by vendor, which would be over here, all the different vendors a company's using. The medium, any medium, linked, co-reg, link out, email display, affiliate, email advertising, and the literal click source. Because again, even within a vendor, there's going to be good click sources and there's going to be terrible click sources, regardless of the vendor. There's going to be things that perform really well, really badly. What this platform does, and this is a screenshot from the platform, is again, as these leads flow through and as these welcome streams are sent, you get the ratios of unsubscribed, complaints, openers, clickers, click to open, and you can see specifically which sources have high bounce, unsubscribe. Again, unsubscribe 16, 57, 17, 30. These are people who allegedly just opted in to receive your email. But this is what happens. This is what happens all the time. So these are, again, so when you're using Certain Source, you're able to say, look at these and say, I don't want anything more from those sources, and manage that either through Certain Source and your Certain Source team, or directly with the vendor and say, shut these guys off. I mean, one of the things I love about the Certain Source platform, if over a short period of time, particularly overnight, you're asleep, there's a threshold that they will set in terms of complaints, and if the complaints reach too high a level, the platform will automatically shut down a source, let nothing else into your system. So with Certain Source, you can do that inbox delivery optimization where you can say, I don't want leads from these sources that tend to unsubscribe, who tend to hard bounce, who tend to complain. But also there's a good thing. I want more sources. Once I've eliminated the bad stuff, you can then optimize on which sources have people who are most likely to engage, who are most likely to open those welcome emails and to click on those emails. So it's not just let me get the bad stuff out, but it's, okay, now where's the good stuff? And how can I focus more on that good stuff? Next major thing. So now we're optimizing on making sure what gets in our inbox doesn't hurt, and also what gets in our inbox over time is for the very same cost per acquisition, I'm refining where they're coming from so I'm getting better results for the same amount of money. Or I can tell a vendor, I'm only going to even pay a little more. These guys perform so well, because sources are a zero-sum game when you're buying them from a vendor. They've got 10,000 good sources. They can't scale that because you want more. What they can do is take it from other people who are paying them less. So it's also an awesome media negotiation tactic. If you know your ROI on a certain source, you can say, I'll pay you more for them. Give me all of them. Don't give anyone else any of them. Second is performance. Is it performing? Not just, again, first transaction, but are they performing over time? How do they look at 1 month? How do those 1 month leads look at 6 months in terms of average order value? Are they getting higher? Are they trending higher? I got the 2-minute hook. Again, with Certain Source, you can. This is again looking at, again, vendor, source, vendor, medium, source. Again, this is various sources, not just co-reg across the board. Looking at rank, and again, this is how you eliminate those one and done sources. These guys were 4 at the 30-day rank in terms of average order value and repeat purchase value. That source, that click source, getting better at 90 days, whereas this one's getting better, and you see others that are worse. So again, if you're looking to build a CRM database where you want people that you can email to again and again and again and again, and they're going to react and buy stuff. This again allows you to optimize and pick those sources of leads, not just the vendors, not just the channels, but the sources of leads. So when you put it all together, medium, source, this is literally what you can do. Buy more. We're looking at, again, the short-term conversion rates of people flowing in. And they can, in fact, measure. If you're driving people to your site and they don't give an email address and they just go purchase, they can measure that too. They can tell you the sources of those people, where they're coming from, and how good they are. So it's not just email source. They can track back anybody coming to your site. And you tell the vendor, stop buying these. Nothing's happening. So that's immediate. You can optimize to immediate results, or you can optimize on long-term value. Again, 30-day rank 16, 108-day rank 4. Well, I think I want to keep buying that, maybe buy more. 4 to 9, maybe I want to buy less. So again, depending on what your KPIs are, what your goals are, you can either immediate, long-term, or do both. So in conclusion, Certain Source is the right partner for your email list growth if, one, if any or all of these fit you, please give us a call. You need to improve your inbox delivery, particularly for Gmail. You don't want to rely only on co-reg as a way to generate new sources, email addresses. Your list's performance is static or declining, and trust me, if you aren't actively pursuing adding new email addresses, it is static or declining. Or fourth, the ROI on your acquisition spend is underwhelming your CFO. So thank you very much. Mind's blown. And again, what I want to say is it's also great to see so many people still here at day 3. We don't normally get as great a crew. So give yourself a hand of applause for hanging it out for 3 days.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Marriott. So we're going to have a coffee break now.
Sponsored by?
Sponsored by Certain Source. So
Excellent.
If you have questions for this man who just blew your mind, you can ask him over coffee right now. We're going to take 10 minutes to network a little bit, and then we'll pick right back up where we left off. Thanks again, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.